Hello, this is Aisha Jordan, Program Associate for Fiscal Sponsorship at Fractured Atlas. I just want to make sure real quick before we start, can everyone hear me? You can type, oh, perfect, wonderful. So we're just going to wait a little bit, a couple more minutes to see if a few more people arrive, and then we'll get started. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. As people are joining just a little bit late, they can just join in. I want to make sure first that you can see my screen as well. Do you see our Fractured Atlas and then the name of the webinar up there? You can type yes if you see that. Is anyone seeing my slides? Do you see the little cursor moving around there? Okay, perfect, great. Everyone can see it. Wonderful. So good evening and welcome to tonight's presentation, Orientation for New Fiscally Sponsored Projects. Again, my name is Aisha Jordan. I am a Program Associate in Fiscal Sponsorship at Fractured Atlas. So we first want to thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. We really appreciate having proactive members who go out of their way to really learn about our program's policies and procedures before they dive really headfirst into fundraising. And again, at any time, if you can't hear me or you can't see any of the slides, please type in the box, I can't hear you, can't see you, and that way we can troubleshoot any technical difficulties that may come up, but fingers crossed, hopefully everything works perfectly fine. All right, so first things first, a little bit about our program here. in the last 12 months, our fiscally sponsored projects have raised $18,493,820. And that's over the past 12 months. And as I'm sure you're aware by now, our fiscal sponsorship program extends some of the benefits of our 501c3 status to artists and arts organizations so that they can solicit tax-deductible donations from individuals and institutional funding, which, otherwise you may not be available to you as not nonprofit. So currently, we have a running total of 3,761 active sponsored projects. Now, they are either producing one-off productions, discrete projects like a single film or a dance production, or we're sponsoring them for their ongoing artistic activities like a startup theater company or works in progress of visual artists, things like that. Ultimately, we have the largest fiscal sponsorship program in the nonprofit arts sector. And how many Fractured Atlas staff members administer this program? 7. Yep, 7 staff members. So how are we able to, before we get into that, how we're able to run our programs with such a limited staff, I'd like to introduce you to us. So right here, you'll see at the top, that's me, Aisha Jordan. I'm a program associate in fiscal sponsorship. And then to the left of me, you'll see Nathan Zabidio. He's a program specialist. Below him, you'll see Diane DiBasella, our senior program director in fiscal sponsorship. And then below her, you'll see Teresa Hubbard. She is another program specialist in fiscal sponsorship. And then to the right of her, you'll see Courtney Harge, a program associate. Above her, Lauren Lattimore, another program associate. And then our member associate, Sabrina Cedeno. So these are our 7 individuals, our dream team, who work with you during your fiscal sponsorship. And when you give us a call, you shoot us an email, it'll be one of us working with you, depending on the nature of your inquiry. All right. So back to the way we're able to run a program like this size so smoothly and efficiently is that we have custom-built online tools that make up a large portion of the program, meaning that it's mainly automated. And there's a great deal of functionality at your fingertips that allows you to control a large portion of your fundraising activities. And the purpose of today's presentation is to show you a path forward with our fiscal sponsorship program by giving you a tour of what's available for you on our website and outline some of our program policies and procedures. So once our board of directors approves you for programs, and some of you may have already received your approvals, you'll be able to log into our website and access your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. Now, this is your primary portal for interacting with the program. And we're going to talk through some of the features of this page as well as the program manual. Now, of course, there's no substitute for hands-on learning, and we can't possibly cover everything in this presentation. So I really encourage you to thoroughly explore this page on your website, on the My Fiscal Sponsorship page, and read through the program manual. And it's only 35 pages, so it really shouldn't take you too long. And these should be your first steps once you get set up in your fiscal sponsorship. So one of the first things to understand about our fiscal sponsorship program is that we make the distinction between earned and contributed revenue. So earned revenue is anything that you receive in terms of ticket sales, merchandise sales. If you do a workshop and you get paid for your services, that's considered earned revenue. Now, contributed revenue is considered anything that's you're receiving funds without any goods or services being provided to the donor. So, for instance, donations that you receive maybe through an IndieGoGo campaign, donations through our site, grants, things like that. So we do now currently accept projects that have for-profit investors. Though we cannot process private investments or equity, there is an addendum we ask projects to sign if they are expecting for-profit investors. But we only process charitable donations from individuals or institutions for the purposes of your sponsored project. And I want to say really quickly, we do in the typing panel, you can type any questions you may have. We will be answering all questions at the end, but I wanted to make sure to let you know that it is available for you. If I see a question there and I'm able to quickly answer it, I'll try to get to it while we're going through the slides, but there will be a time for questions at the end. All right, so accepting donations. So we help you process donations, contributed revenue, 3 different ways: by debit or credit card on our website or on a crowdfunding campaign with IndieGoGo that has been linked to your fiscally sponsored project. We accept donations payable to Fractured Atlas by check. And we also accept non-cash donations of goods made in kind to the charitable purposes of your project. So each of your fiscally sponsored projects has a donation landing page on our website where they can direct donors to who want to contribute by debit or credit card. Now, we can accept credit card donations up to $20,000 per transaction. If you have the inviolable problem of knowing a donor who wants to contribute more than $20,000 and charge it to their credit card, they can do that. They'll just need to ask them to do it multiple times with the same card. And they should probably wait about 5 minutes in between transactions so that our system doesn't think it's a duplicate donation made by mistake. And also so that the donor's credit card doesn't get shut off for fraud. So donors who contribute by credit card are required to provide an email address, and we automatically send them a tax receipt for their records. And this is very important. Please note that you are prohibited from collecting credit card info from your donors and entering it into our website on your own. Donors must input their own debit or credit card info or contact Fractured Atlas to process a donation over the phone. This opens us up to some liability issues as you as a sponsored project are not an authorized agent to use the credit card processor in this way. So your donor landing page is a public-facing page on our website where you should put content that you would want potential donors to see. This can be an image or YouTube video and a brief description of your project or what your current activities are. So you can edit your sponsored project's online profile on our website through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the online profile button, and you'll see that with the little green arrow you see up there. So when you submit changes, you'll receive an automated email, and this will go to a member of our staff asking for review and approval before it goes live on our website. Now, we typically turn this around in 1 to 2 business days. We'll either approve the changes outright or be in touch with you directly via email if we have any questions about the new material that you're putting on your profile. So, like I said, we can also accept check donations that are made payable to Fractured Atlas. Now, you're welcome to have donors write your name or the name of your sponsored project in the memo line, but this isn't entirely necessary because we ask that your donors mail you the contribution first, and we'll get a little bit more into that. So once they mail you the check, again, it's made out to Fractured Atlas, they'll mail the check to you. You would then report the donation online on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the donations button. And again, you'll see that with the green arrow. Checks and the little underneath it says report. So here's where you'll create the donor record for the check contributions. You'll provide the donor's name, contact info, and other info available to you from their check before forwarding it on to us for processing and deposit. And you'd be surprised how many unreported checks arrive at our office, which we end up spending a lot of time doing detective work to figure out which of our fiscally sponsored projects they're designated for. And we often have to mail unreported checks back to the donor or back to you, as it's crucial that we receive this information in advance. So just to recap, your donors will send you their check contributions first. You'll submit donation reports on our website and then forward the checks onto us for processing and deposit. You'll be sent an email notification once the donation is processed with a copy of the receipt for you to forward onto your donor with your thanks. And let me know if I'm going too fast or anything. Right, so next we can accept check donations of any size, but those of $1,000 or more require an extra piece of documentation, the major gift letter. So this is the major gift letter. It's a simple form letter that's available to you to download from your MyFiscal sponsorship page for your donor to complete and sign. Now, you're able to upload the major gift letter as an attachment to the donation report, but it's not required. So you can feel free to send us the check to process before you receive the major gift letter if you aren't able to obtain both at the same time. And we're happy to process your reported checks of $1,000 or more without a major gift letter, but the donated funds will not be made available to you until we receive the signed major gift letter. Now, as a nonprofit, we submit these things ourselves in our audit, so it's really important that we receive this and have this as donative intent from the donor, making sure that we're complying with all of our processes and doing as the donor wishes and as the project needs. So here's a couple things that we cannot accept. We cannot accept donations of cash. So this is something that if someone does donate to you in cash, by all means, you're welcome to accept it. It just would go directly to you and to your bank account. It's not something that we would be able to process through Fractured Atlas, and the donor would not be able to receive a tax receipt from us for that cash donation. And the next one we actually cannot accept is money orders. So in order for us to be able to issue a tax receipt, we need to be able to directly link the money back to the specific individual or entity. So for instance, a credit card transaction or check with the donor's bank account and routing numbers on it provides us with exactly that direct link that we're looking for. Again, you're welcome to accept cash or money orders directly from your donors, but that would not be tax deductible for your donor, and it wouldn't be able to be processed through Fractured Atlas. So we can, however, help you accept non-cash or in-kind donations. These donations have to be physical, tangible items that exist in the real world and that you can touch with your hands, the ownership of which is fully donated over to your project. So let's talk about this a little bit further. So we can only process donations of physical, tangible items. So they need to exist in the real world that you can hold and you can have. So donations of someone's personal time or services are not considered by the IRS to be charitable tax-deductible donations. So if a restaurant donates food or beverage to you, they can get a receipt for those items. But if they donate their catering services, they could not get a tax receipt for that contributed time. We can, however, accept gift cards or gift certificates from businesses that otherwise sell these items. So, for instance, if Target donated a Target gift card to you, we'd be able to accept that. So in order to be tax deductible, non-cash donations need to be fully donated over to the charitable purposes of your sponsored projects. So donations of rent or rental items wouldn't count. If someone gives you equipment for free that they would normally charge a rental fee for, and you need to return that item when you're done, that's really more of a loan. So similarly, donated space wouldn't count as tax deductible, as you're only being given the partial interest in the property. So finally, we actually cannot accept donations of airfare or air miles or automobiles. It gets very, very sticky when it comes to donating automobiles. And in terms of airfare and air miles, it would actually have to be someone from the 501c3 organization accepting it, meaning only people from Fractured Atlas would be able to use the flyer miles or the plane ticket. So if you want to donate for me to go to the Bahamas, that's totally fine. I'll take that. But otherwise, we wouldn't be able to process that for you. All right, and as with your check donations, you would need to report the non-cash donation on your MyFiscal sponsorship page as well. So here you will also be able to download the non-cash donation letter, which is necessary when we want to issue a tax receipt to your donor. So this is another simple form letter for the donor to fill out where they provide a description and value of the items that they are contributing. And you can see there, it's pretty simple. They'll put in all their information, sign it, and you can upload that directly with the donation report. And I'll show you that in a minute. So right there, so you can upload the non-cash donation letter during your donation report, and you can submit that through your MyFiscal sponsorship page as well. So one of the other things to make note is that for non-cash donations valued of $250 or more, we will require a photograph of the donated item or items. So be sure to take that photograph as soon as you receive the donation, especially if it's donated food or beverage. We've had several projects say that they were donated several amounts of food for like a fundraiser, but they ate the food. And therefore, we weren't able to provide the tax receipt without a picture of the donated food. Right. So with all donations that we process for the purposes of your fiscally sponsored project, we deduct an administrative fee to cover the cost of running this program. So our administrative fee pays for our staff, time, our website, and things like credit card processing and bank fees. Now the fee starts at 7%, but as you raise more money, the fee is lowered on check donations. So for instance, if you raise $150,000 or more over the lifetime of your fiscal sponsorship, the administrative fee on check donations goes down to 6%. And at 500,000 or more, it's reduced to 5%. And if you raise 1 million or more, the fee goes down to 4%. And we've had projects actually raise at least that much money over their time with us. So the fee actually remains at 7% for credit card donations, as the processing fee for that we incur does not change. So one of the things to take note as well is that we also charge a 7% fee on the stated value of donated non-cash items. So you can either have us charge this fee to your credit card on file or have us deduct it from your available fund balance. And that's something to really keep in mind when you're receiving those donations. So you can always check your fund balance on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page here. So you see there with the green arrow, anytime you log in and you click My Fiscal Sponsorship, you click the Info and Reports button and you'll be able to see your available fund balance right there. So maybe we're going a little too fast and we'll take a step back because before we even start processing donations, how do we get people to actually consider making a contribution? So we'll go into a little bit more of that. How do you get people to give you money? Well, we ask. So this is often the first hurdle that new arts entrepreneurs encounter. And every day I talk to artists or art startups who experience an initial queasiness to, asking people for money. Now, I encourage our fiscally sponsored projects to consider themselves in good company. So all nonprofit artistic ventures in the United States require philanthropic support to keep in operation. Now, that goes for the Metropolitan Opera in New York or the Getty Museum in LA. So don't consider it panhandling or begging. Consider it an offer. You're offering potential patrons an opportunity to get involved with something bigger than themselves. And with fiscal sponsorship, offer them tax deductibility as well. Now, as soon as you're approved for fiscal sponsorship, we recommend that you send out an appeal asking for people to make a contribution and to let them know that their donation will now be tax deductible. So some different ideas can be an e-blast, a snail mail campaign, a newsletter. You can put it on your website. You can host a fundraiser or run a crowdfunding campaign. And all of them you should consider at some point as a part of your larger fundraising strategy. So we have an individual appeal letter template among other fundraising templates available for you to take a look at on our My Fiscal Sponsorship page. Now, crafting a good letter is more than just, plugging your info into a formula and pressing send. So I'd strongly encourage you to use this template as a way to kickstart your brainstorming about the letter that you would intend to send out. So, but before you send out any appeal letters to potential donors, please send us a copy first for our review and approval. Now, you can email your fundraising materials to support@fracturedatlas.org. A good rule of thumb is that at any time you mention Fractured Atlas or promise patrons tax deductibility, you should run it by us before sending it out. And we require you to do this for a few reasons. First, it's in your best interest to have another experienced pair of eyes take a look at what you're about to send out. Now, at that point, I'm sure you've probably reviewed the letters a million times, and we have a pretty good idea of what a successful, well-presented appeal letter looks like. We can offer you some tips and tools to potentially maximize the effectiveness of your fundraising materials. So we'll definitely provide feedback where appropriate. But we're also looking to see that you're correctly representing the fiscal sponsorship arrangement between Fractured Atlas and your project. So what you'll see right here, this is some standard text that we require you include on all your donor solicitation materials. Now, this can be found on page 12 of the program manual. It's just a quick 2-sentence paragraph that succinctly summarizes the fiscal sponsorship arrangement. Now, you're welcome to include it as fine print at the bottom of your materials, but it must be in there somewhere. So, we're also looking to see what you're offering donors in exchange for the contribution. For example, advertising space. So advertising space is something that we're actually not able to have our projects solicit. So there's a fine line between advertising and just honoring. So let's say, if for instance in this picture here, Pontiac says that they'll give you $50,000 if you put their car in your program, and if you put all of their logo everywhere, and if you use their car maybe in the film that you're doing. That would be considered advertising space. So they're receiving advertising in exchange for the funds that they're be giving your project. And this is something that we wouldn't be able to process for you. It's not something that we can offer as a fiscally sponsored project with Fractured Atlas. Now, it's different with corporate sponsorship. So corporate sponsorship is that they'd be then almost granting you funds and then asking that, you're wanting to give them recognition by putting their logo in your program, by mentioning them at the end of your film or anything like that. That itself is just corporate sponsorship. They're not expecting you to now advertise what it is they do or advertise their company. They just want recognition that they've given you some funds. And it can get a little sticky. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to email us first to say, hey, am I doing this right? Am I following the proper rules? Things like that. All right. And one of the other things to understand is that we cannot award donors raffle tickets in exchange for tax-deductible donations. So raffles are considered a form of gambling, which is regulated at the state level. And so it's not something that Fractured Atlas wants to really get involved with because it's something we can't manage throughout each state. And each state has pretty strict rules on gambling. So make sure that if you're offering anything in your materials, that you're not also offering raffle tickets in exchange for their donation. So one of the things to keep in mind is that whenever you offer donors rewards or goods and services in exchange for their contribution, this makes their donation partially tax deductible. So anything above and beyond the fair market value of the rewards they are receiving would be tax deductible. So this would be, for instance, let's say you did an IndieGoGo campaign and one of your perks is saying you're offering 2 tickets to your performance along with a $100 donation. Let's say the tickets are worth $15 each. So $30 is not deductible to your donor, but the $70 above that is tax deductible for your donor. And that's something that needs to be indicated in different places when you're doing this type of solicitation. Which brings me to crowdfunding partnerships, because the perks actually have a lot to do with the partially tax deductible. And one of our crowdfunding partners is IndieGoGo. So we partner with IndieGoGo so that you can create campaigns that are linked to your fiscally sponsored project with us, so that all donations that go to your campaign will then come directly to Fractured Atlas. And that way we're able to process donations made to your campaign and issue tax receipts as well. So IndieGoGo is a great tool to raise both funds and awareness about your work. You can set a deadline and a fundraising goal, and often offer different giving levels with your incentive donations by rewarding donors for their contribution. Again, the perks. So these perks are often partially tax deductible, so we'll be looking for you to provide info related to the fair market value of what you're offering your donors in exchange. Now, before your campaign launches, we'll want to take a look first to provide feedback and make sure your giving levels are appropriate to take into account potential partial deductibility. So one way that you can start crowdfunding, you can do it directly through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. So you're going to log in, go to My Fiscal Sponsorship, and you'll see the Accessorize tab. You click that, and you'll be able to click IndieGoGo. And then that way you'll follow the few instructions to set up an IndieGoGo campaign directly linked to your fiscally sponsored project. Now, we really ask you to check with us at support@fracturedatlas.org before pressing anything like review or submit, just to make sure that your campaign is actually linked to your sponsored project, because it can get pretty tough once a campaign goes live to be able to link it to your fiscally sponsored project. So alternatively, if you don't want to run a crowdfunding campaign, or if you want to offer giving levels to your donors on an ongoing basis, you can add some to your donation landing page on our website. So from the My Fiscal Sponsorship page, click the Donations button and then Giving Levels. So your donors will then be presented with options on our website for different giving levels that they can contribute at. And if you want to offer donors rewards, their online debit or credit card donations can be partially tax deductible. And one of the things I want to mention before we move on from crowdfunding and giving levels, with IndieGoGo, we do still assess our 7% fee, and IndieGoGo takes an additional 3% fee. So altogether, there'd be 10% coming out of the donations through IndieGoGo. So that's something to consider when setting up an IndieGoGo campaign. Right, so applying for grants. So fiscal sponsorship can definitely open the door to institutional funding. So funding from foundations or corporations. And as with approvals of your individual solicitations and crowdfunding campaigns, we want to be involved when you apply for grants from these sources as well. So before you start looking at grants, however, I should let you know that we do have a grant eligibility requirement. So we ask that all of our projects raise $1,000 before seeking grant funding. And this was actually presented to us because a lot of funders ended up contacting us and letting us know that they're more inclined to give to a project that already has a donor base. So we've asked that of our projects. Now, let's say that you've actually raised $1,000 for your project before becoming fiscally sponsored with us. As long as you show us proof of that, whether it be like an individual grant that you received or transactions from donors, we can waive that eligibility requirement. You just have to contact us at support@fracturedatlas.org. Okay, so the way that it works is that we do have a review application process. So you'll send us all of your grant application materials to support@fracturedatlas.org. So this would be your budget, the application itself, if there's a cover letter, anything that has to go in with the grant application. And if you have an online grant, we actually require the login information and a link to the site. And it's always best to send us a link to the grant eligibility requirements as well as the guidelines so that we can take a look. So once you've sent all that in, we actually do our review process. And we'll take a look at everything. If it's an online application, we'll actually log in and look at all of the different requirements. And then we would actually upload any necessary documentation that is required from Fractured Atlas. So if they require an IRS determination letter or an endorsement letter from us, these are things that we'd actually supply to you or upload ourselves online. So one of the other things that we actually do as well is that we make sure that you're reporting properly to the grant. So if you are luckily awarded a grant, we make sure that you're complying with any of the reporting processes that the grant requires, and that we are providing any documentation that we might need to give you in order for you to report for that grant. So now that you're successfully solicited donations and you've had patrons donate to your fiscally sponsored project, what next? How do you access these donated funds? So first, you'll need to send us info from your checking account. And you can do this by downloading the sign-up form for electronic fund transfer, or EFT. And you can do this on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Fund Release button. So we strongly recommend that you have an account for your project's finances that is separate from your own personal finances. Now, that doesn't mean that it needs to be a business banking account. It can just be a separate personal checking account. This way, you're able to keep proper track of what funds are donated to you and what are either your earned income or your personal finances. So this is what the EFT signup form looks like. It's pretty simple. We'll need you to complete the form and send it in with a voided check. And I know, we're into the new digital age, so a lot of people may not have checks for their bank accounts. What you can do is you can send us a bank letter stating the account number, routing number, and the address that's associated with the account. And that's something we can accept as documentation. So you can either scan and email this to us at support@fracturedatlas.org, or you can fax it to 212-277-8025, or snail it to us. All of our content is available on our website. And I'm just going to say, just stop real quick to let you know, this is being recorded. So if you are, feverishly jotting down things and you feel like you're missing anything, don't worry about it. We're going to email you a recording of this webinar so that you're able to go back and catch anything you may have missed. So so EFT. So we're able to accept, again, a voided check or a bank form for the EFT. So once we've received your checking account information, you'll be able to submit a fund release request through our website for available funds. Now, it's really important to note that we hold all donations for 7 days before they are available for you to release to yourself. Now, this is to make sure that all credit cards and checks and things are not disputed and that everything clears so that you're able to then use the funds for your project's activities. And again, everything would be available in 7 days unless we're waiting on a major gift letter for those $1,000 or more donations. We're also happy to hold on to your donated funds as long as you need us to, provided that you remain a dues-paying member of Fractured Atlas with an active fiscally sponsored project. Then you can release funds to yourself or keep them in your fund balance with us. And this is something really important as well. We do not automatically transfer funds to your projects. As a fiscal sponsor, we need to demonstrate that we maintain a certain degree of discretion and control over how the funds are raised through our program and used, that the fund release request allows us to see exactly what these expenses are being used for. So you'll see here when you submit a fund release request, there's a drop down there that allows you to pick the certain category that you'll need when releasing the funds to yourself. And they are pretty broad expense categories for budget line items, but we really ask that you try to make them as specific as possible. So you can say that 1,000 was for public relations or 500 was for space rental. There is an other expense, but just so you know, we almost never let anyone use the other expense explanation because we really need to be specific. And a lot of the time, there is an expense that it actually does fit within. So one of the things that you're not actually able to do with funds raised through Fractured Atlas is re-grant. So any funds that come into your project for your project's activities should be used specifically for your project's activities. You can't release them to yourself and just give them away for no reason or donate them to another charity. It has to be used for your project's activities. So for particularly large fund release requests, we do require some documentation. So anything of $5,000 or more, we do require documentation be sent in with the fund release request. Now, a lot of people get confused because they're like, well, how do I have documentation if I haven't spent the money yet? We're not asking for receipts exclusively. So let's say you're looking to buy plane tickets for some artists. You can take a screenshot of what the plane ticket would cost, and you can submit that as documentation. Or if you have contracts or invoices or quotes of things that you would need to pay, you can feel free to send that over to us as acceptable documentation as well. One of the documentations we don't accept Excel spreadsheets of budgets. We don't accept credit card or bank statements, and we don't accept images of checks. What we're really looking for is the agreement between you and the payee for the paying amount, and that's what we really need. So when you apply for fiscal sponsorship, if you recall, you were asked to provide a legal entity with a U.S. taxpayer ID. Now, this is either an individual with a social security number or a business entity, which is your employer identification number or EIN. Now, we can work with any type of legal entity, either an individual sole proprietor, an LLC, a corporation. We just ask this because funds dispersed through our fiscal sponsorship program are reported as income to that legal entity in the form of a grant. Now, this is important because the legal entity will be responsible for reporting that income on their taxes. And each January, we issue a 1099 miscellaneous to the individuals, partnerships, and LLCs, showing funds dispersed that previous calendar year as Box 3, or other, or grant income, which would then need to be filed on their taxes. Now, corporations those projects that are listed as corporations are not issued 1099s, but they will still need to report Fractured Atlas's income on their 990. So that being said, I know a lot of people get really scared because so now I have to pay taxes on these donations that are coming in. That being said, you shouldn't necessarily have to pay income tax on funds that are released from Fractured Atlas, as long as you're keeping a really good record of what these funds are being used on. So because we only release funds to you when you request it for use for your specific project-related expenses, you should be able to offset the income on your taxes using the expenses that the funds paid for. So, anything that you've used for the business, you should be able to offset that, the funds released. So an important thing to keep in mind is that your project is a separate business entity from Fractured Atlas. And one of the great aspects of this is that you maintain complete ownership over the work that you create. So we don't grant you 501c3 status, only the IRS can do that. Rather, we are extending some of the benefits of our nonprofit status to the projects that we sponsor. To that extent, we'll want you to check in with us on a few things. Primarily, the use of our tax ID. Now, I'm sure if your friends asked for your social security number, you would be very curious as to why they're asking for your social security number. In the same way, anytime you encounter a situation that requires Fractured Atlas's EIN, please let us know so that we can advise on its usage. Now, we're happy to provide sponsorship confirmation letters addressed to specific potential donors or sponsors to help grease the wheels, but we can't provide one-size-fits-all confirmation document that includes our EIN, as we want to be involved on each and every time someone is requesting our information. So you can just email us at support@fracturedatlas.org with the name of the institution, why they are requesting the EIN, and what it's going to be used for. And one of the things to also let us know is that if there's an application process for something in which they're asking for your EIN, we really need to know that as well and what that process is. So one of the most important things that projects often think is that you can use our EIN to open a bank account. Unfortunately, we are not able to help you set up a business bank account with our EIN because of the relationship. So any account that you create needs to be set up in your own name with your own tax ID. So don't sign up for anything that requires our tax ID without running it by us first. So we can also provide a letter to you to help you obtain nonprofit rates for vendors that offer them. Now, it's ultimately up to the vendor if they will extend this rate to you, but most are willing to do so. So this is especially helpful with space rentals. If the venue offers a nonprofit rate, we can usually help you get a discount. Now again, just shoot us an email with the name of the institution and the mailing address, and we'll be able to issue a letter to you to send over to them. Now, nonprofit rates do not apply to bulk postage for mailings. This is something that you would only have access to if you were your own 501c3. And unfortunately, we're not able to help you with sales tax exemption because sales tax is actually regulated at the state level. So our 501c3 only allows us to get tax exempt status in New York City. And in order to comply with to provide the same service for all of our projects, which are nationwide, we don't offer this service. So the final major fiscal sponsorship policy to bring to your attention is our annual report. For any fiscally sponsored project that either processed donations or requested fund releases in a given calendar year, we're going to require that you submit to us an annual report updating us on your activities. Now, the report is due April 1st every year and will send out 3 reminders starting at the beginning of the year for you to complete the report. Now, if you don't complete the report by April 1st, we will freeze your project. But it's relatively simple to unfreeze your fiscal sponsorship. All you got to do is submit the report. So you can access your annual report on the My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the info/reports button. And right there, at any time, you can fill it out at any time and submit it. I suggest doing it directly in December right away. And it also is very helpful for some of our projects as they're filing taxes to have a nice record of everything you've done throughout the year. So this is the report after it's submitted. It's entirely online. You don't need to prepare a different document. You don't have to have any other items with it, but it has two major components. The first is that we ask you to provide a brief narrative description of what you accomplished the previous calendar year. And this can be as detailed as you like or as broad as you prefer. It's whatever you would like us to see. And with that narrative, you can provide a numerical impact for your work to show how many people were exposed to your work and how many artists participated. We also asked for updated financials. Because we only process contributed revenue for your fiscally sponsored project, we're only aware of income and expenditures relating to the funds that we've handled. So this is an amazing opportunity to tell us about all the other funds that you've handled separately from the program, where they came from, how they were spent, and also if you've changed how your funds were released, if you've used them for something else, this is a time for you to let us know, like, oh, we ended up not using that on space rental, and we ended up using it for contract for artists. And this is a chance to make those distinctions. And the annual report is another important way that we demonstrate the discretion and control over how funds are raised through our programs and are used. But this is also a way for us to collect data about the artists and arts organizations that we serve so that we can better understand how our own impact in the nonprofit art sector is in the United States. And the more accurately you can provide your data, the more complete our picture is of the kind of business our sponsored products are able to do in their own communities. So I'm going to open up for questions momentarily, but I would really like I would really want you to get a sense of how easy fiscal sponsorship is to use and how much power you actually have at your fingertips to go through the online tools available on our website. Now, I would encourage you once again to thoroughly explore the My Fiscal Sponsorship page and our program manual for a more comprehensive overview of all of our program policies and procedures. And before we open up for questions, I know you guys are really excited. I'd like to quickly plug some of Fractured Atlas' other programs and services. So because you're a member of Fractured Atlas, you now have access to some of our amazing services. And one of those is our ticketing and patron tracking service, Artfully. So Artfully actually allows you to, if you're fiscally sponsored, it can actually link with your donor records, and you can actually see what your donors are doing, when they've donated, things like that. It also allows you to provide ticketing service for your event. So let's say you're a theater company and you're doing an event. You can set up an Artfully, and therefore you can sell tickets and actually track those who have paid for your performances and things like that. And then we have our services of Space Finder. Space Finder is actually one that I use almost every day. I actually have a fiscally sponsored project myself. And it's an amazing marketplace for you to be able to search very specifically for space, for anything that you might need. Now, it could be a space for a photo shoot, for a film shoot, for a theater performance, just for rehearsal, for even if you're having like a baby shower. You can actually search by location, you can search by price, you can search by type of space. It's really an amazing resource for finding affordable space. And a lot of them do have nonprofit rates listed in their venues as well. And then finally, our insurance program. So a lot of our artists have, artwork they might need to insure some of their artists. If they have an event they want to get insurance for, this is a service that we do provide. So you can apply for a quote and see if it fits properly with your project and obtain insurance for your artistic activities through Fractured Atlas. Right. So just want to give credit to all of the amazing photos that you saw during the presentation. And I will now open it up for questions. Right, so I see, once you approve the appeal letter, are we permitted to use it in multiple times and places? on our website and in a newsletter, or do we need approval each time? Right, so we would need approval each time, but for instance, let's say you're just sending an appeal letter and you're going to send it to several different people, that's fine. You could say, dear blank, and then let us know what you'd be sending all the different people. It is, for your website, we would need to see the website. So you can send us the text to the website and then also a link so that we can approve it. And the newsletter itself would also need to be approved. So if it's one document that you're sending to a bunch of people, we can definitely approve that. But if it's a different type of document, we need to see each type of document. I hope that makes sense. How do we show payroll documentation? That's a very good question. So one of the documents that we do accept actually is the invoices from paychecks, or if you have a payroll like I think it's ADP or ADH, I believe, you can send us what they send you, and that's a documentation that we can accept. So if you have like a regular payroll company, we can accept that documentation. Okay. Is there a way to see the application form before applying for fiscal scholarship? Unfortunately, it's not available on our site if you are at the free community level. If you do upgrade to the professional level, you would be able to view the application ahead of time. Again, the professional level is about $10 a month, and the organizational level is $20 a month. But it's a very, very simple application process. It really asks for your project description, a bio or history of your project, an estimated budget. We just want to see what type of budget you might be fundraising for, and then kind of like your discipline and things like that. So it's not a very involved application, and it's pretty simple to view. Okay, if you auction something at a benefit, is that like a raffle? No, an auction is different. So the only thing that makes it tricky when you're doing an auction through the fiscal sponsorship program is that the donations we ask be made by check, because the only way to actually process a donation like that in which they've bid and they've won an item is that you'd have to set up a giving level. But those giving levels are actually available to anyone at any time. So even if someone is not bidding on it, they could actually give to that giving level. So we ask that if you're doing something like a silent auction, that you have the people pay in person by check. That makes it much easier to make sure that the person who bid on that item is the one who actually gets the item. Okay, what about using social media to appeal for donations? Oh yeah, definitely. We definitely ask that because social media is such a big tool when it comes to connecting with people and for exposure. We definitely suggest using social media. The only thing is we do ask to see what it is you'd be posting before you post it. And again, it could just be the text of whatever Facebook post you're going to be posting. Or if you're going to be doing like an Instagram or anything like that, just send us the text for approval before you start posting. Okay. Can I report a check for more than $1,000 before I get you the major donor letter? How long do I have to get that to you? You can definitely report a check of $1,000 or more, and you can send it to us to process. You have as long as you need. It's just that once we process it, the funds will not be available to you until we receive that major gift letter. So there's no time limit on it. If we don't receive it in a month, then unfortunately you won't be able to use that money for a month. So getting them in at the same time is more ideal for you, but again, we'll process it and wait as long as it takes to get that major gift letter. Will Fractured Atlas send support letter for the project for a lease application? That depends. So if the lease is offering some kind of discounted rate, or they need a 501c3 in order for to get the lease, that is possible. You would just need to send us the email at support@fracturedatlas.org with all the information. So what is the application process, a link to the site, maybe a copy of the application as well, just to make sure that it fits within our regulations, because sometimes it could be that it seems the 501c3 itself is getting the lease rather than your projects. We want to make sure that's not happening. In the same way that you offer a template for appeal letters, you also offer a template for gift acknowledgement letters, including language for tax deductions, charitable donations. So we only offer a template for individual appeal letters and for grants. So anything that you want to, like a thank you letter or anything like that, that's not something that we have on our site. But it is something that, you should be able to find pretty easily online. But that is a great question. That might be something we could add in the future, having a template for, how do you acknowledge a gift. But we actually provide the tax receipts, so you wouldn't need to, send a letter to your donors letting them know that it is tax deductible. We'll send that. For a credit card, they'll get the tax receipt immediately, and it's the proper language that they'll need for their accountants or anything like that. And with the checks, we send the tax receipt to you to send to your donor. Okay. You filled out an application and decided to switch your group level and use an entity with an EIN. How can I change an application I've already submitted? So you wouldn't need to change the application. You would actually just need to wait until you are accepted and then ask to change the legal entity. This is something that we can actually do for our fiscally sponsored projects at any time. If you end up incorporating or end up changing legal entities, it's something that we can update after you are accepted. So I do suggest just waiting to receive that acceptance and then going and letting us know that you've got a different EIN. Okay, other than IndieGoGo, do you have a list of other website services you can recommend for new nonprofits? Is this for if you already are a 501c3 or if you're just looking for a new crowdfunding? The only partnership we have is IndieGoGo. So if you were to do something like Kickstarter, GoFundMe, any of those, it would have to be something done outside of Fractured Atlas, and you wouldn't be able to mention Fractured Atlas, and you wouldn't be able to offer tax deductibility for that crowdfunding campaign. But again, you're free to use any type of crowdfunding that you like, that maybe you feel is best for your project or for what you do. And again, Kickstarter and GoFundMe are very big ones that do support a lot of artists and different causes. Can funds be used for living expenses as we work on projects, and what category would that be filled under? So this is a question a lot of projects ask. You are able to pay yourself for your work. So when you're releasing the funds, you wouldn't necessarily have to be like, this is going towards my groceries. You can actually just, issue your project an invoice for your time and then just pay yourself for the work that you do. And then, that can then be used for any of your living expenses that you would need. And again, it will be seen as income for you. So I would make sure that you consult an accountant and how you can make sure that you're not owing any taxes or anything like that. But that's what we suggest. Is there an advantage to using both IndieGoGo and Fractured Atlas donation link, or should we use one or the other? I wouldn't say that there's an advantage or disadvantage. A lot of people prefer one more than the other. IndieGoGo, some people are very used to the type of site that they have in which you can, shows your progress and things like that. But either one is very useful. For instance, right now, my sponsored project is actually doing a fundraising campaign strictly through Fractured Atlas. So we set up giving levels, we put up a video just like you would on IndieGoGo, and we've said how much we need to raise, things like that. And it's been working really well for us. And again, if you don't want the 10% coming out, it always works really nicely to just do it through Fractured Atlas. You only get the 7% coming out. Does the manual have suggested language for posting on social media? No, it doesn't have anything like that, although that is a great idea, and that's probably something that we would maybe want to look into providing for our projects. But we don't. We do have other webinars, and as you'll see on the screen there, crowdfunding campaigns and for things like that actually help you decide like how you should be marketing yourself on social media and things like that. So I do suggest taking a look at some of our other webinars, specifically the individual donors one. That one definitely helps with that. Okay, Carolyn, great. We'll look out for your email. Do you need to approve social media posts that have no mention of funding? No. So anything anything that you're posting that doesn't solicit a donation, we don't need to see. So a lot of projects sometimes think they need to send us their press releases. Unless you're asking for a donation, it's not something that needs to come through Fractured Atlas. If you're just posting about an event you have coming up, feel free to post. You don't have to send us the text or anything like that. At what point is revenue commercial? Are you thinking about in the sense of the advertising and the corporate sponsorship, or just revenue that you're earning? So if you're gaining money for anything that you're doing, like let's say, you've sold an ad that you were working on to a company and they give you money, that's just earned income. And if you're talking a little bit more about like actually raising profits, that's another issue. So we don't actually worry if you're making money and it's being used for your project. That's great. Continue to do that. Any of the funds that are coming into Fractured Atlas need to be used specifically for your project. So it doesn't become commercial revenue or anything. That the only revenue that we accept is contributed revenue. So if it's partially tax deductible or it's fully tax deductible, that's what we're processing. If you have an investor who's giving you funds and expecting their money back, that is something we cannot accept. If you have investors, that's perfectly fine. It's just we cannot accept funds from those investors. I guess that would be considered commercial revenue, really. Do we have to contact Fractured Atlas when applying for residencies? It does depend. If the residency is requiring anything from a 501c3, yes. So anytime that you would need Fractured Atlas's tax ID number, or they need information about, our 501c3, then yes, we would need to see the application and everything. But otherwise, usually residencies are strictly creative, so it's not something that we would need to see unless they're giving you funds that need to go through a 501c3. Then yes. If we're selling our artworks, are we still nonprofit, or what makes a project nonprofit or for profit? If you're selling your artwork, that's perfectly fine. Again, if you're making money off of the thing that you do, that's totally fine. It's just that you can't be in the business of, capitalist ventures. You're not investing in other kinds of stock with the funds that you get from Fractured Atlas. Any funds that, again, come in from Fractured Atlas need to be used specifically for your project. So if you're selling your artwork, that would go directly to you. So you can put that right in your bank account. It's perfectly fine to do that. I encourage that. You're welcome, Catherine. So glad that you were able to attend. If we accept donor levels, can we list donors as patrons in a program? Is that considered advertising? Great question. No, that's not considered advertising. That's along the lines of appreciation. So if a donor gives you $100 and you want to acknowledge them in your program, that's perfectly fine. It's just if, let's say, that donor also runs a dentist and they say, oh, I gave you $100, please put my ad in your program, then that would be advertising. But if they're just like, yeah, I'm supporting your project, here's $100, not expecting any kind of ad space, but maybe a nice thanks of their logo in the program, it's totally fine. It's really more about the contract or the agreement between you and the donor. If there's an agreement saying that you have to do something because of the donation, then that would be considered selling something to them. If you decide you want to modify your project later on or in a few years, you want to take your product to a new direction, what would be the process for that? So it's pretty easy. What happens is you just contact us. If you're doing something completely different, so let's say if you were doing visual arts, but now you're doing film, which are kind of similar. But let's say you were running a gallery, but now you want to focus on film. You would submit an expansion application. So we would set your project to pending on our end, and then you would go in and change anything necessary for your project and submit it. And it goes along the same timelines as the application process. So the last day of each month it would be due, and then you would be notified within 15 by the 15th of the following month. So that's how you would do that if it's completely different. If you're only changing, for instance, your project name, you would just need to email us and let us know that your project activities haven't changed, but you're going by a different name. That's how that would work. Is it okay to do both? Oh, you're talking about IndieGoGo? Yeah, that's totally fine. It might be a lot of work to do both IndieGoGo and Fractured Atlas. um, but yeah, you can do anything that you want to do. If you wanted to start your IndieGoGo campaign, and if you said, hey, if you just want to donate directly to our project, go ahead and do so, because your donate landing page is open at any time for anyone to give whenever they like. So it's not, you can only, if you're doing an IndieGoGo, people can still donate to your donor landing page anytime they like. Can money raised for Fractured Atlas be used to fund general staff salaries at an arts organization? Yeah, that's fine. As long as there should be an expense category in there for wages and salaries. You just choose that when you're releasing the funds, and you'll be able to pay your staff members. Are we allowed to ask for donation on a site like GoFundMe at the same time as having Fractured Atlas sponsorship? Again, yes, you are able to do that, but again, you cannot mention us in your GoFundMe nor offer tax deductibility, because we cannot issue tax receipts to those funders who give to your GoFundMe. We do have projects who will open a GoFundMe and say, hey, if you want to do a tax deductible donation, click here, and it'll take you to the Fractured Atlas site so that you can make tax deductible donations. But we don't restrict you on that. Is fashion design an art? I personally believe so, yes. I believe it's an amazing art. But yeah, that is definitely artistic in nature. Can we listen to this webinar again? Yes. So everyone who is signed up for this webinar will receive an email either by the end of this week or next week with a link to watch the webinar again. So don't feel like you have to get all your questions in now, or that if you miss something, you can definitely go back and watch the webinar again. So I think we've come to the end of the questions. You're welcome, Margaret. Thank you so much for attending, and I'm glad you guys got some great stuff out of it. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at support@fracturedatlas.org, and we'll definitely get back to you within 1 to 2 business days. Yeah, so again, for those of you who have been accepted to fiscal sponsorship, congratulations. For those who are thinking, we're really excited to start working with you. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at any time. And please do check out some of our other webinars that we have coming up. I believe we have our corporate grants webinar coming up, I think, next week. And after that, I believe our individual giving after that. So definitely stay tuned. And thank you again, everyone. And look out for our email with the link to the webinar. All right. Have a good night.